Talk to Nate Tice, the Athletic, Yahoo Sports, former scout, does an awesome job breaking down the NFL, studying the film, and was a great resource to learn from, listening to all of his broadcasts leading up to the draft. Nate, thanks for a few minutes in DC. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that intro. Yeah, no, happy to be here, and yeah, happy to get to pick up amongst like 9 draft picks, or we could talk about like the 14 free agents they brought in. It's
Yeah.
like just a lot of new. So no matter what, it's just kind of fresh there. It feels like.
There's a chance there's going to be over 30 new players, right? 20 plus free agents, even counting all the guys down the depth chart. I mean, it's going to be a complete overhaul. Well, let's just kind of run through this draft class. I want to start with Daniels at 2. I know you were a big Drake May guy, but what do you make of them deciding to go Daniels and now trying to make this work with Cliff Kingsbury?
Yeah, I was a May guy, but there's a lot of qualities with Daniels. Obviously, that's why he went number 2. First and foremost, the thing with Cliff Kingsbury, even though he's an air raid guy, when he was in the NFL, the one cool thing that he showed with Arizona with Kyler was his rushing ability. Like the run game was actually one of the best parts when he was with the Cardinals. And I know a lot of people are like, we just drafted the guy number 2, and you're just talking about the run game. But it's actually a huge component of this. And so that's actually something I'm kind of excited about, because you want Daniels to get saved hits. And that's actually a good comparison with Kyler. You didn't want him to get hit too much. So they can kind of design it the same way. So that's one aspect I like. Also, just a lot of quick game, a lot of shorter throws. He's accurate. And actually, there's going to be a lot of carryover from what he's run in college to what Cliff Kingsbury runs. So I think there's going to be some adaptability. The offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson's there. He's an NFL guy. Run a lot of power concepts over his time. So I think there's going to be some fun melding, even if again, I prefer May, but they can make this work because of some of the qualities of Daniels and with what Cliff runs.
Nate, one more Daniels one. What's the best way philosophically for you to ensure success, not only in the short term, but in the long term? Is it kind of like this transitional type offense where you're still doing some elements of what he did in college? Or is it, let's throw you into the deep end to see what you can handle? Like philosophically, balance that for me for what Kingsbury and company should be doing.
What's nice is there is a lot of carryover now from college to NFL as far as a lot of passing concepts. Not all of them. It gets more designery in the NFL, so that's going to have to be a big part of this, like, third downs and all that. But he has some experience because he started so many games. Protections is always a big thing, learning those things. He does show that he's already handled some of that in college again. So his transition, this is the whole point of drafting Daniels at number 2, is that he's more ready-made, kind of quote unquote, as ready-made as you can be as a rookie quarterback. First and foremost, I think what they're doing is kind of getting at least B level or B minus level everywhere is a good way to do it. Not throwing them into a Trevor Lawrence in a Jacksonville situation, Justin Fields and Bears situation where it's, hey, you're on your own. Go figure it out. Which there's qualities to that, there's positive to that, but you also just want them to not develop scar tissue. So first thing for me is like they're doing okay there where they have at least competency everywhere. I think always you just want O-line. You want to just protect them so they don't, get skittish back there and develop bad habits. So, David Carr is always in the back of my mind. So those are the things I always just kind of focus on. I think they're doing a solid job of building it up around them just because of what they had and what they added.
Yeah, 2 weapons, Ben Sinnott from Kansas State, Luke McCaffrey of Rice, we can come back to, that they added to McLaurin and Dotson and what they've already got, having brought in Austin
and
Eckler.
One of my favorite role players in Zacchaeus. So you're like, yeah, I was fired up about this role-playing slot receiver you guys got, because the only good things happen when the ball goes to Zacchaeus. I'm telling you.
Olamide Zacchaeus, UVA guy in our backyard. Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah. I never mentioned him, but he was brought in. But I want to go to the O-line for a second, because it's something that you broke down quite a bit before the draft, and I'm sure you have a take on Brandon Coleman. But that's the one area where I'm nervous, where I would kind of take this group's plan so far to task a little bit. They don't have a left tackle. They cut Charles Leno, who isn't healthy. That's fine. But their starter right now is Cornelius Lucas, who's been a swing tackle in Chicago and in D.C. as kind of a third guy. Then you draft a number 2 overall quarterback who has a propensity to turn some pressures into sacks. And they made 4 picks without a left tackle. They ended up getting Coleman, who some see as a guard at 67. They really like him at left tackle, so I'm fine with that. I'll take their word for it. A, what do you think of Coleman? And B, are you surprised that we're through free agency and the draft is over and it still looks like Cornelius Lucas is their starting left tackle?
I think they got kind of caught where they made their intentions known, I think, to everybody, that they were trying to move back up into the end of the first and take another lineman and another tackle. And I think they just kind of got snuffed out by other teams' big boards. So I think they had a plan for it. I think just their ideal plan A, and maybe even plan B, fell through. And Coleman's like, all right, this is the best of this next tier where we're sitting at. So I think they just try to make it work. It's not ideal. I'm not going to defend it all the way, but I do think they tried to do something about it. I did like that they added Biotish, even if he's a fine center, but at least he's handled, an NFL offense and shows that he has starter qualities, and that helps a rookie quarterback out a ton. But yeah, I agree that the left tackle thing is a little dicey, but I think it's going to be a throw bodies at a problem. I would say the one benefit of the quick game that I think they're going to run into, or shorter passes they're going to run into, the ball gets out quick. So we can hopefully mitigate some of the damage and mitigate some of that. I'm trying to be optimistic here.
Nate Tice of The Athletic with us here on G&D. Go to Sainristil, the cornerback. What did you see? What did you like? What do you not like?
Oh, love him. I think everybody loves him. I think a universal appeal with him. But I love that he's smart, first and foremost. And then he is undersized, but he did test he's an explosive athlete. Like, it's not like he's this guy's not an NFL level athlete. He's just smaller. But he legit could play all 5 spots back and in the defensive backfield. So he's going to be a slot in the NFL, which I think is great because that position is so important now. You have to have a smart player there. He's smart. He's explosive. He's a good tackler. He can blitz. He can cover. So he's like a real fun, super utility role player that I really like. So I love that pick. Like I was going to say that him and Newton, don't want to get ahead of anything, but those two guys that Washington drafted are just like fantastic players, just dynamic players too.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had Newton on the bingo card in DC because Allen and Payne have been so good. Although, Allen could walk after this season,
Right.
more so they would let him go. He's got term left, but nothing guaranteed. So it seems like maybe they're preparing for life after him. But based on what I heard from just conversations I had this weekend, they just felt like Newton was too good not to take.
Yeah, and there's something to that. And why not get a guy that can create explosives for your defense? And, he gives you a different flavor than Allen and Payne. And so when you move on from Allen, it gives you kind of that synergy, to use a nice corporate buzzword on it. But I think that's what another part of this, where you're bridging now and bridging the future. You just mentioned, he only has 1 year deal, 1 year left. If things go super well, maybe it's a trade deadline thing. And you go from there. But I liked it. I'm never going to be opposed to adding to the trenches, offense or defense. I know we just talked about tackle, especially if a guy falls there, because it's just so hard to find these guys. And he's a guy that creates stuff that not a lot of guys can.
Nate_Tice. You should follow him on social. Does a really good job breaking down ball and studying the film. What did you make of the Luke McCaffrey pick? I believe your colleague Dane Brugler at The Athletic had him ranked 25th among receivers. So this was maybe the one pick that felt like the previous regime where they took a guy that they like way, way, way more than everybody else. I'll take my chances with Adam Peters doing that over Ron Rivera.
Yeah, felt like it. Felt like a heat check. It did. One good thing is he catches everything. So you'll never be worried about that. You won't be worried about drops. He legit catches everything. So, that was a little – I had him more as like a 5th rounder. So you're getting to that point, and maybe just in their tier break and how they looked at it, there was a big drop-off, going from the 1st round to the 2nd, and then greatly so into the 3rd and 4th. So maybe they're just like, hey, Ty goes to this guy that we have a preference for. So it was a little rich.
Ty goes to Christian McCaffrey's brother and Ed's son, right? Bet on the bloodlines.
Oh, yeah, that guy? Oh, I thought it was just another guy.
Yeah, if he was like Luke Stevens, I don't think anyone would care. Big picture, though, Nate, what I want to get out of you, it seemed like they had a type in general. You mentioned this. The thing that's kind of been buzzing around here for folks in the DC area is they're maybe puzzled by a couple of the picks, but although generally liking them, they wanted this athletic hyper, toward the top of the board in terms of athletic skill, right? This relative athletic score that's now been making the rounds. All these guys were very much in the green for most of their spots and their attributes. Whether or not that translates into great football, I don't know, but it definitely seemed like they had a type here.
Yeah, and they obviously don't have a size threshold that they worry about. They truly are going for, no, we want the best athlete, as opposed to maybe like the Packers and some teams, the Patriots actually now, but some teams have size thresholds for certain positions. Obviously, they took Sainristil, so they said, okay, we just want the ball player that is enough of an athlete overall, as opposed to he has to be 190, or he has to be 200, or he has to be, Ben Sinnott. Like, he's kind of a tweener. I see him as kind of like a old H, which is funny because that's back in Washington, back in the Gibbs days. but kind of that hybrid role. He tested like a freak though. Like he tested so much better than I even anticipated. So that's kind of checking that mark for them, where it's like, hey, we don't care about the size. Get this athlete on the field, and we'll figure it out. So, I mean, even looking at the quarterback, there's some teams that have that size thresholds for quarterback positions, and they said, well, we don't care. We're going to take the athlete and take the player that we like the best from film.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought of it that way. It's a good observation from Nate Tice. Before we let you go, your favorite pick they made, and then maybe the head scratcher.
Ooh, yeah, Newton. Newton is the one for me. Even if it's like adding, a hat on a hat to the defensive tackle position, it's like, yeah, like you guys just alluded to, it's just too good of a pick. The one I would say was Benson. Not to me, I liked him a lot. I just was surprised he was the second tight end to go, from that position. But if they have a good use for him, I'm fine with it. He's not for everybody, but that one was just like a little like, oh, in the second, okay, it was a little higher than I anticipated. But like you said, they kind of have their own board and their preferences.
Nate, great to catch up with you, buddy. Appreciate it, man. Have a good week.
Thank you guys for having me.